I'm Sophia. I'm 28 years old today, and I'm sitting here in the United States, where I'm feeling incredibly emotional and painful, something I never imagined 5 years ago, especially after the painful incident at what was supposed to be a joyous family reunion. I'm creating a video about how my dad burst out at the family reunion, proclaiming his pride for all his children, except for the loser, which was me. I left immediately after that, and this video will delve into the aftermath and the journey I've been on since. Here are a few strong hooks to draw you in. Those moments, those words, replay in my mind like a broken record. The humiliation, the disbelief, the sheer pain of being singled out by my own father in such a cruel way. It's something that's shaped the last 5 years of my life. But this isn't just a story of pain. It's a story of what happens when you're pushed to the edge and what you choose to do next. Let me take you back to that day. The air in my childhood home was thick with the familiar scent of my mother's cooking, a blend of spices and warmth that usually brought me comfort. This family reunion was supposed to be a celebration, a chance for all of us to come together, laugh, and reconnect. My siblings were there with their spouses and children, the house buzzing with the joyful chaos that often accompanies large family gatherings. I tried to soak it all in, plastering on a smile as I navigated the crowded rooms, exchanging pleasantries and catching up on everyone's lives. Deep down, however, a familiar unease gnawed at me. My relationship with my father had always been complicated. There was a distance, a subtle disapproval that seemed to linger whenever he looked at me. I'd often found myself striving for his validation, hoping that one day I'd finally measure up to his expectations, whatever those might be. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere grew more lively. Drinks were flowing, old stories were being retold with embellishments and bursts of laughter, and the children ran around, their energy seemingly boundless. Eventually, my father, in his usual commanding way, gathered everyone's attention. He stood in the center of the living room, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. He began to speak, his voice booming, through the room, a toast to his family, to our successes, to the bonds that tied us together. He spoke of each of my siblings in turn, highlighting their achievements. My older brother, the successful lawyer, my sister, the renowned doctor, even my younger brother, who had recently launched a promising tech startup. With each mention, he beamed with pride, his words painting vivid pictures of their accomplishments. And then came the moment I had both anticipated and dreaded. My name was called. My heart pounded in my chest as all eyes turned towards me. I braced myself, a fragile hope flickering within me that perhaps, just perhaps, this time would be different. Maybe he would acknowledge the small victories I had achieved, the hurdles I had overcome. But instead, his expression hardened, his voice took on a sharp edge, and the words that followed ripped through me like a physical blow. "And then there's Sophia," he said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Well, I'm proud of all my children," he continued, his gaze sweeping across the room, pointedly avoiding mine. "Except for the loser." The room fell silent. The laughter died in the air, replaced by a heavy, suffocating tension. I felt my face flush with shame and humiliation. The eyes of my relatives, some filled with pity, others with awkward discomfort, burned into me. It was as if time stood still, the weight of his words pressing down on me, crushing whatever hope I had harbored. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The years of subtle disapproval, the constant feeling of not being good enough, all coalesced into a burning rage and an overwhelming sense of finality. Without a word, I stood up, my hands trembling. I didn't look at anyone, not even my mother, whose face I could see contorted in distress from the corner of my eye. I simply turned and walked out of that house, out of that gathering, and out of the life I had always known. The slam of the front door behind me felt like a definitive end to one chapter and the painful beginning of another. As I stood on the driveway, the sounds of forced cheerfulness and hushed whispers emanating from the house, a wave of nausea washed over me. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove. I drove without direction, tears blurring my vision, the words "accept the loser" echoing in my mind like a cruel mantra. Where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do? For so long, I had defined myself, at least in part, by my family, by my father's expectations, even though I often failed to meet them. Now, stripped of that, I felt adrift, lost in a sea of uncertainty and pain. The days that followed were a blur of raw emotions. I stayed in a cheap motel, the anonymity of the room offering a strange sort of comfort. I replayed the scene in my head countless times, each repetition deepening the wound. I questioned everything, my choices, my dreams, my very worth. Had he always felt this way? Had I been so blind to his true feelings? The silence from my family was deafening. No calls, no messages, just a void that amplified my sense of isolation. It was as if I had ceased to exist in their world. But amidst the pain and the self-doubt, a tiny spark of defiance began to flicker. His words, intended to diminish me, started to have the opposite effect. The label he had so carelessly thrown at me ignited a fierce determination within me. If he thought I was a loser, I would show him. I would show them all, just what I was capable of. This wasn't about seeking his approval anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was more than his hurtful words. I started small, focusing on one step at a time. I dusted off old dreams, passions I had long neglected in my pursuit of his elusive approval. I enrolled in online courses, devoured books, and connected with people who shared my interests and believed in my potential. It wasn't easy. There were days filled with doubt and the lingering sting of his words. There were times I wanted to give up, to retreat back into the familiar patterns of seeking validation that had ultimately led to this devastating moment. But the memory of his pronouncement, the sheer injustice of it, fueled my resolve. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to build a new life for myself. I found a job that I enjoyed, one that challenged me and allowed me to grow. I made new friends who appreciated me for who I was, not for who my father wanted me to be. I discovered a strength within myself that I never knew existed, a resilience, born from pain and the unwavering determination to prove him wrong. The journey wasn't linear. There were setbacks and moments of intense sadness. But with each small victory, with each milestone reached, the weight of his judgment lessened, replaced by a growing sense of self-worth and accomplishment. 5 years have passed since that fateful family reunion. 5 years of healing, of growth, of forging my own path. I may not have the life my father envisioned for me, but it is a life that I have built with my own hands, a life filled with purpose and meaning. The scars of his words may never fully disappear, but they no longer define me. They serve as a reminder of how far I have come, of the strength I have found within myself, and of the fact that true worth comes not from the approval of others, but from the belief we hold in ourselves. Today, as I sit here reflecting on this journey, there is still a pang of sadness, a lingering question of why, but it is no longer the all-consuming pain it once was. It is tempered by a sense of pride, a quiet confidence in the woman I have become. My father's words were meant to break me, but instead they became the catalyst for my transformation. I may have left that family reunion feeling like a loser, but the truth is, I walked away and started winning in my own way. And that, I realize now, is the only victory that truly matters. Hey, if you've ever felt underestimated, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button for more stories of strength and resilience. Let's build a community of survivors.